Hello, Turks and Caicos. Following up from the government's press conference, which took place on Sunday, 15th of March 2020, where it was announced that there are no suspected or confirmed cases of the COVID-19 coronavirus within the country, we must give God thanks. In our 2nd of March 2020 release on COVID-19, we called on the government to update the public at least once per day on the COVID-19 risk to the country, and that to approve a public and environmental health control measures COVID-19 order. We're happy to hear that going forward, the government will be providing updates to the public every midday. Also, we must acknowledge that on the 6th of March 2020, the government passed the Public and Environmental Health Control Measures COVID-19 Regulations 2020. During its press conference yesterday, the government said that it will be having another one today to discuss the financial impact of COVID-19 to the country. As such, we would like to reiterate the urgent need to put plans in place to address the economic fallout due to COVID-19 to not just the government, but also to the business community, and most importantly, the labor force. It is critically important that the government convene a meeting with the business community to quantify the impact of COVID-19 to them and their staff, and to come up with measures to mitigate against that impact. We would be remiss if we didn't point out that we are concerned that the government has not made any provisions for emergency funding to be used to support the economy, example through soft loans to businesses, in order to fight off an inflation and a potential recession, which will happen if the government doesn't step in and provide support. To ensure that businesses don't go bankrupt during this crisis, we are asking the government to ensure that any and all outstanding payments that they have to local suppliers and vendors are expedited as soon as possible. And to further help, we are again calling on the government to have NIB and NHIB waive any late payment penalties during this crisis. While it would make for great PR if the utilities and telecommunications companies would step up and show that they are good corporate citizens by pledging not to terminate service or increase costs to customers during the COVID-19 pandemic, in absence of that, we are also again calling on the government to work with all stakeholders to ensure that no rate increase is put into effect for the remainder of 2020, and that companies refrain from the terminating of critical services to consumers during this crisis, and that payment plans are put into place that consumers can avail themselves of once this crisis has passed. During the government's press conference yesterday, the Minister of Health reiterated his ministry's call for residents returning home from places where there are confirmed cases of COVID-19 to self-quarantine, further stating that if those persons need support, that they should call the ministry. We are urging the government to go further and set up a toll-free hotline that's staffed 24/7, so those vulnerable persons who are self-quarantined can get support whenever they need it. There's no need to make them go through the government switchboard to get help. Based on the UK government's prediction, the COVID-19 outbreak may not peak until 14 weeks from now, that is around the 22nd of June. With governments in our neighboring countries closing schools for at least 30 days, it's just a matter of time before the same happens here. If when schools close, it will put pressure on parents who do not have access to or can afford childcare services. As such, we are calling on the government to put through emergency legislation that will temporarily allow, one, working parents who require it to take time off to be with their children during this time without penalty to their income or benefits, and two, for NIB to extend its benefits to cover any loss in pay for persons who are required to stay home from work, either due to being self-quarantined or for parental reasons. While we have been blessed to not have any suspect or confirmed cases of COVID-19 within the country, we are keenly aware of our patients who are being treated at health facilities abroad, where there are or have been COVID-19 patients. We are keeping those patients in our prayers, and we are asking the government to update the public on the measures that are being taken to ensure the health and safety of those patients, who more than likely have weakened immune systems and are at high risk of catching COVID-19. Turning our attention away from the government, we would like to again remind persons not to hoard essential goods during this crisis, as it puts everyone else at risk. Stock up on key supplies, but not so much that there's nothing left for others. We're all in this together, so let us work together for the good of all of us. May God bless you, and may He keep us safe during these troubling times.